Howdy chaps and chapettes, we're back for another fantastic episode, and I just saw the workshop mouse run across, so that's fun. So we've hit 3,000 subscribers. It's probably going to jump up and then down a bit as it works out its stuff, but I saw the message this morning, it said 3,000 subscribers, so that's pretty darn impressive actually for me. And a good chunk of you recently turned up from Peter Anderson, so thank you for wandering over. I hope you'll enjoy it. You might not. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Now we're going to be working on this XW. We're going to do a fair bit of work on this over the next 2 weeks. A few things I've got in the works. Fingers crossed it's going to... Two things. I bought a slide hammer dent puller, which is like it welds itself on, pulls, so that'll be an awesome piece of kit. And all going well, I've got lined up an inverter spot welder, which is the industry standard type thing that you'd find in a crash shop for doing stuff like this, to replace factory welds with factory welds, which are spot welds. So all going well, we should acquire one of those soon. So yeah, thanks to an old work buddy, he had one stashed, so I'm like, I'm going to borrow that, and if it's any good I'll buy it off you. So fingers crossed that happens. So yeah, that's pretty good. I'll walk you through and show you what we're up to. Now I will admit it has been a little bit of time between updates, mainly because over the last week it has been insanely busy. I've had loads of visitors. I even had DJ from Automotive Carnage pop in from all the way from WA, which was fun. Just so much stuff going on. Also I've been focused on because we've gone into a much bigger shop and workload has increased, we've sort of had to almost steer away from YouTube a little bit and focus more on work and getting cars done. But I'm going to try my best to try and keep the car content coming and the YouTube stuff, because it is thoroughly interesting, well to me anyway, and it is helpful to quite a few people. So that's something. But yeah, last week it was hectic as all hell, and we've only been in the workshop 2 weeks now, so you just got to hang in there chaps. I'll get back to it a bit more regularly. And I think, unfortunately, well not unfortunately, I think I'm going to actually potentially have to hire somebody to help me in the near future. Not straight away, but you know, soon-ish, but not like instantly. But yeah, that's something, so I'll have to get a worker to help me, just because there's so much work. Now the first thing we're tackling on this XW is not an XY, it is an XW. It's just a Falcon, as you know. You know, they're all just Falcons really. We're going to be tackling this inner torque box. So we had this made up. I might have shown this in other videos, I actually haven't done it yet. So this is going to require some trimming, but this will fit in there. Got to weld it in nice. Now there is actually a fold in here. The direction of this piece changes right here, so it's another flat that goes across there, so that's why we got this made. I think it's 2.5 mil. It's quite thick because it is actually a structural member of the car. Now, I'm not a big fan of cutting this much out of the car, but this is actually how it turned up, so I probably would have left it me personally, I would have left one sill panel together and only done one at a time, just because that makes sense to me. You don't want to tackle 40 jobs at the same time. So in my opinion, I'm straight up looking at this going, well, that sill panel's cut open, that torque box is cut open, the braces are cut off the floor, that torque box is off, this sill panel's open, and that torque box is off. That's quite a large amount of stuff that's open, but I sort of know why it was open, so they could be sandblasted. But all I would have done is just cut the actual outer skin off and not taken open all the torque boxes, just because it's a strength thing, because it could have been open and then individually blasted with a smaller blaster when you came to do the repair. But we will also have to fix up all this. Possibly not the best way to remove spot welds, but you know, that's fairly easy. We'll just hammer and dolly it and then weld them back up. Unfortunately, that's probably the only way to fix it really, without cutting a new floor out. So we've got to bend this straight, trim off here, Put a new piece in here, weld up these holes here, which I don't know why they've been drilled through. Weld up that and that, because they're all drilled through. Got to weld up all these little holes here, grind that off. I'm thinking these are drilled through spot welds as well. Weld them up, weld that guy up, and then chamfer, or basically bevel this edge, I think it's called that, where you just take it's almost a diagonal off it, so that when the weld goes in it actually can penetrate a lot further, and trim off that little bit of daggy junk in there, and weld up some of these little splits. And then we can roll forward to potentially putting on the outer torque box, which is here, and eventually I'm hoping that we get this big honking spot welder very soon, so that I don't have to hand plug all of these spot welds across here, and I can actually use a proper water cooled industry standard big honking spot welder, which would be awesome. So yeah, that'll be great if I can have that happen. Oh, and of course weld up all these holes, which are all drilled through. Oh well, it is what it is, and we'll just have to get cracking. Oh, and then of course pull this little drain hole out and straighten him back up, because he's been crushed by a jack at some point. So this car is going to be full of an absolute monumental amount of small tasks, but I'm just going to get stuck into it and weld up some of these holes and a few things, and we'll catch you up in a jiffy and walk you through some of it. So we've just cut out this piece and welded up some of those areas where they've been drilled through a bit too far, and I'm going to just, I mean I could probably rework that, but I'm not going to. It's a bit thin through there now, and it's rusty there, so we've got it out. It's actually not as bad as I thought, but it has, I'll have to straighten this up because it's pushed it down. Rust has an insane amount of pushing force. There's not much it can't push out of the way. So we'll clean this area up, make a new piece here, and then weld it back in, and then we will carry on with the next piece. Right, so we've got the next piece in. I am yet to drill the hole, just play the waiting game. I'll get it in there eventually. All copper sprayed, all belt sanded out, all the rust that's in there. New piece folded up, notched and everything. That should fit it. Get in there. Yeah, in. There we go. That should fit in there nicely. There's no rust there. The outer torque box will have a nice piece to sit on. The only issue I've got at the moment is being able to weld that seam. So what I'm thinking about doing is just notching out a little bit here, big enough for the welding tip to get in there and blast it, and then I can just weld that back up. That's what my thought pattern is. And what I'll do is I'll drill some holes through this and then rotate the car the other way around, so it'll effectively be here and do the plugs through here, but they'll be under here, which will weld this seam to there. So that's what my brain is telling me to do, but I had to get this out because one, there was only one spot weld in there, as you can see, maybe two, I think it's actually one, but the rest was just rust and it was pushing it up, so I'm like, that's not very solid anymore. So that needs to be a lot more firm, and then because I've done those, and then we can then put this piece back in. I'm going to weld up all through there and clean them up a bit, and then we can actually put the torque box in. We've also had a parts delivery, yeah, outer wheel tubs for the back. I'm not even sure the technical term for them, but they're part of the inner seal panel. They're actually one of the main things that joins the front and the back of the car together, because for those uninitiated, about the only thing that joins the front and back to car together is this piece here, because it attaches to the torque box. The torque box is a part of the front of the car. If you look through here, you'll know that the front of the car actually hangs free, and the transmission actually hangs off the front chassis rails. Nothing actually holds these two together. It's all in the seal panel. So once the seal panel rusts away, the car pretty much breaks in half. So you've got your firewall through there and across the top of the perm chamber, all holding the front on, and then you've got the torque box through the seal panel area and up the side, and that's it. That's all that holds the car together, front to back. So why you find them collapse is when the plenum chamber rusts out, and then this area rusts out, the car will just quite literally break in half. So it is key for this particular area not to be, as I say in the classics, you don't half-ass this area because it's very, very structurally important to the strength of your car. So I see a lot of shonky work out there, a lot of people just plating over it. No, fix this area properly. It's very important. So they kind of look a bit like that. It's amazing how much strength a rusty panel can have in it, but they need to be fixed properly. So that's why I'm not leaving any pitting, because that's actually a weak point now. It's not as thick as the rest of it, so I'll weld them up, which will put the strength back in it. Which also explains why they made this particular section out of nearly 3mm steel and the rest is 0.8 or 1mm. So yeah, but we've got outer wheel tubs. They're amazing. I think you can get inner ones as well, but we don't need them. But getting those pretty much solves 3 areas of rust. It solves the back, the wheel arch and the front. So I don't know if the wheel arches are actually rusted out on them. Oh yes they are. So it solves this area, it solves this area, and it solves this area. And I'm still waiting on these to be made for XA, Bs and Cs. They're coming, I'm told, but sooner rather than later will be good. They still don't make those for the bucket seat braces. They don't make those for XAs and Bs and Cs yet, because another little known fact, XW, XY, XR, so XR to XY Falcons, they're actually narrower through the middle than their later ones, XAs, Bs and Cs. You wouldn't think it by a quick glance, but they are. They're about 1.5 inches to 2 inches narrower through the shock towers and straight through the center of the car, which is where you just don't think it, but they are. They are a significantly thinner vehicle, and you can bolt an XY diff into a XA-BC coupe to gain wheel clearance, because despite the car being narrower, the axles are shorter, but not where they bolt in. So the center and where the leaf spring mounts is still the same on the later ones. They're shorter from the leaf spring out, and I have photos to prove that, but I can't be bothered showing you right now. But I did put an XY Falcon diff into an XB coupe, and I gained myself an enormous amount of wheel clearance between the outer wheel arches. So that's a hint for you coupe guys. But yes, carry on. I'll drill some holes. I'll probably notch that so I can get in there, and then I'll weld it back up, and we'll get that in, and then we can get this piece in, weld that up, grind that down, and then we can test fit up this one of the outer torque boxes, which are awesome. Money well spent, that stuff. And I do love a customer who is not afraid to spend money on rust rear panels. It makes life so much easier if you just buy the stuff, because it's so much time saved on fabrication. So we'll catch you up in a second. Right, there we go. Turn the car over and you're on to the next bit, which is fantastic. I do love rotisseries. I'm converted, I think they're great. So all I do is plug weld up these holes, which is effectively the 2 sides together, and then give it a bit of a once over, and we're laughing. Alright, so that's all lovely and buttoned up. We can throw some, I'm going to say, etch on this side, and then copper spray on this side, and then roll the car back over the other way. I wanted to show something just briefly because, well, I found that I have an XB floor brace, which I still need to put in my car, but haven't got there yet. So this is an XY, so should I say XR to XY bucket seat brace, and this is an XA onwards one. They don't look hugely dissimilar, but right through here it's noticeably wider, and that's where the floor pan in the car is wider, right down the center of the vehicle. So no, an XY one will not fit into an XA-BC one, and vice versa. They are different, despite looking exactly the same. So you like match them off this side, and you see this one's got a huge, it's just so much bigger through the guts of it than these ones. I think it's about 1.5 inches potentially, about the width of the car difference, right down the center. I just thought it was an interesting thing to show, because not many people know that the cars are narrower. I mean, they do present as a smaller car, even though a lot of the similar things. And another stupid thing that's different on them is on the this body style, they actually mount the alternator slightly closer to the block rather than further away. So I don't think I've got, I can't get to it over there, but on a later Cleveland there's the alternator bracket is like a almost like a block L shape, and on the XY ones they're just a spacer because they actually mount the alternator closer. Stupid things, although mind you, on the changeover periods between cars they do chop and change whatever the hell they feel like, because Ford were pretty good at running one item into the next model and vice versa. So I've seen plenty of XC stuff run into XDs, plenty of XB stuff in XCs and vice versa. Hell, I had that XY Ute I had that had a lot of XA stuff in it because it was such a late body shell. So yeah, enough of that stuff. We'll get moving on to this and hopefully we get some more done. But it's just been horrendously time consuming because you've got to make the bracket, fold the bracket, grind it out, clean out the rust, mark it all up, put it in there, weld it all up, make sure it's solid. You know, it's just, and obviously now it looks pretty good. And then we're going to chuck that piece in. Alrighty, there we go. That next piece is tacked in. I'm going to actually tack it in a, well, I'm not going to tack it in, I'm going to weld it in a second. So what I've done is I've sort of chamfered the edges a little bit so that I can actually get a good penetration weld. I've done a tack, did a big blob there, another tack, that one could have been better, I'll fix that up in a second, and then go through there. So this is done, this is now surprisingly solid. You might find that I'm talking a bit loud. I'm actually currently trying to overpower a very subtle music that's coming from next door so I don't get demonetized for that, but that's where we're at, and hope you enjoy the next bit because I'm going to weld that in a second. Right, I think I'm going to wrap up the video here. I just want to get some more stuff done, but I really want to just get it done and not actually continually film it, but I do want to keep you guys updated. So just to wrap up, we've done this, cleaned up in there, got all the rust out that's in between there because you pretty much have to. Have welded it from the back side, welded in there, trimmed this piece up, welded that in. That is solid as a rock, that is not going anywhere. This bit is the next bit to go in, and I'll do that in a minute. Oh, it's a little heavy. One-handed, but yes, that fits in there, and that ties the firewall to the engine bay, to the chassis rail, to the inner seal. Well, actually, it ties it to the inner seal panel there through this bracket here. So it all sort of intermingles together. But I've obviously got to clean up the welds and tidy up a few little holes. But that's, I don't know how much that weighs, but it'll be several kilos. Whoops. Stay. I'm watching you. But yeah, that's where we're at. I've got to get in here and weld these little holes up here, grind off those, hammer back that dent, straighten this up here. That's where the accelerator pedal screws through from the other side, so it's okay. That's a hole, those two are holes, but that's far, and I'm going to make sure it's clean in there, and I'll weld that up a little bit too because that's just a bit too deep, and then we can move on. And then after that I will tackle this torque box here, and then we'll start ripping off the bottom of the A, B and C pillars and chop off a little bit of the quarter panel, expose the inner sill, and I'll brace the car a bit more from that brace there to the floor pan and a few more pieces so that the car definitely does not lose its shape when this inner sill panel comes out. Despite this panel being very rusty, it is still very important to the car structure and is still holding it fairly well despite it being rusty. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for the 3,000 subscriber mark, and quite a few of you come over from Peter Anderson, so how do you chaps? I hope you enjoy it. I will be getting more videos out, but obviously I'm also trying to get work done, so I'll do my best to keep you chaps apprised. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found it informative. See ya. Of course, I've got to tail end this on the end of the video. Got to say a huge shout out to the lovely chap who sent me this, which I totally forgot about. A lovely chap from Queensland, I believe he's a viewer. If he's the chap, I think he is, because I get messages by a lot of people. Unfortunately, I do struggle to remember everybody, but I do try to reply to everybody. But if I think this is the chap who I think it is, I think he came here with another one of my mates, and I think I gave him stickers and whatnot. But if that's who I think it is, either way, thank you very much for the air cleaner. That'll find its way tidied up and onto this nugget. For a nugget it surely is. And this goes Wednesday, goes back to the transmission shop to be played with again. I also think it's time I need to start driving it some more, because it needs a good tune up. It's smelling a bit rich while it's just moving too far. I thought I'd throw this in for Peter Anderson so that if he watches the tail end of this, this is what he's got in store. So you can see this is, I think these are the pistons out of the smoking engine, which might be that block over there. If you look closely, somebody's added in an extra piston ring above the top ring to try and stop it from smoking. And then there's these other pistons which are out of the J block, which was a seized motor. One of them has a hole in it, I can't remember which one. Here it is. But the rod is still good, so this is what he's got looking forward to. There's one of the blocks. I think this will be one of the ones that he'll probably rebuild out of spare parts. The J block is the one that I'd really like to be in the EJ. And then we've got 5 cylinders, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That I believe might be the best one of the lot, because it was running. Whether it was running well or not, I don't know. And some of these others you might just be piecing out of spare parts. And yes, I wonder where the other parts got to. There's several distributors. I think it might be 4 rocker covers. You got to remember, this is the early style grey motor air cleaner. I mean oil cap, and this is the later one. Got a slightly smaller mouth on them. I don't know how good this is going to be in the end of this video, but mountains and mountains and stuff. So I'm actually going to probably put this on a pallet shortly and ship it to him as a bit of a head start, because I don't know, I just don't know how things are going to pan out. But yes, huge thank you to the guy who sent me that. You know who you are. I'd totally forgotten, but pretty stoked. I think this might have got damaged in transport, because it looks like something's been on top of it. So I'll knock that out and either get another one of these or glue that back together. But I think it's an XC air cleaner, but it's a 4-barrel, and I think it's XC because it's got some extra stuff. It means I now need to hunt down a pizza cutter and a hose for that, or block them off. I don't know, I haven't seen too many factory XB 4-barrel air cleaners to know what's different. I've seen plenty of XC ones, and that's what I'm used to, and this is what I reckon this one is. Now I don't know whether it says V8 here, but whether it did 302 or 351 through there, it's hard to see. But that's going to clean up like a champ. I'm very happy. This person has made me a very happy boy, because I'm just super grateful when random chaps give me stuff. It almost blows my mind. You just don't expect it. I mean, if somebody could take the car and restore it and then give it back, I'd be even more grateful. Now, she's going to remain shabby on the outside, but pretty stoked about that. I mean, if anybody has a GS bonnet, please sing out. I don't want to pay the world for one. Hell, even if somebody had the center section, I would put it into this bonnet, even with this damage on it, leave it like that and then paint the rest green. But yeah, I've still got to get driving lights and stuff like that. And I've been thinking about doing a Patreon. Peter Anderson told me that I should be doing one, and just give free, early access to videos and a bit of the behind the scenes stuff, and maybe have a bit easier for people to contact me and whatnot. I'm still not brilliant with technology, but I'm thinking about going down that path, because I think Any money that comes from that would be very well useful in saving for workshop equipment and whatnots for growing the business. But I don't know if people would actually want to pay to see crap early. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video and this little snippet at the end. So stay tuned for more, and we'll be getting back into the XW a lot more over the next 2 weeks. So stay tuned.